From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome into episode 6 of Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. I'm your host, Adam Bernard, and my line mates for today, as always, are Mr. Anthony Rivera, who's a very happy Devils fan over the past week, and Mr. Christopher Morais, who is not a happy Habs fan, to say the least, over the course of the last week. So we're going to get both sides of that coin here in a little bit. Plenty to get into today. We got NHL free agency opening up on Saturday. We have the draft, the rounds 2 and beyond where, we had round 1 last night, more rounds today. As we record this on a Thursday afternoon, we're going to talk a little NHL draft, some of the trades and signings that have happened already, and we'll take a look at 3 guys on the market and the odds for where they're going to land to wrap today's show. Also, we'll take a look at the Ducks' 30th anniversary jersey. Also, some polarizing opinions on the panel here as well. But a lot to get to today. Before let's not waste any time here because we are in a chock full show today. A lot to get to, and the first story from last night was we knew Connor Bedard was going first overall. We knew that. I mean, that would have been the story of the year had Connor Bedard not been taken by Chicago. But we all kind of thought Adam Fantilli was going to go to Anaheim at 2. And as you could see there, that did not happen. Fantilli was actually passed on by Anaheim for Leo Carlsson. Fantilli goes at 3 to Columbus. We take a look at those odds there for a second. Fantilli was minus 350 to go 7. Mickov was plus 350. That was never going to happen with Anaheim, and Carlsson was plus 450. So good on you if you bet on Carlsson to go to Anaheim. Carlsson was minus 140 to go 3rd. Fantilli was plus 200. So I know that a lot of people are going to jump all over Pat Verbeek for making that move. But the comparison I kept hearing for Carlsson is Andrei Kopitar. And when you've seen that guy play across town for as long as you have and beat you in the playoffs and in the regular season so many times, I almost, not to say, listen, Jarmo Kekalainen is very happy to have Fantilli fall into his lap. He's got a franchise cornerstone there, kind of in a mold of a Rick Nash of a face of the franchise. Johnny Gaudreau will be on a line with him. There's going to be a lot to like there. But I think the safe pick in what Anaheim did, again, not sexy, but I don't mind the pick. What was your guys' reaction when you saw Anaheim taking Leo Carlsson instead of Adam Fantilli at 2 overall?
Carlsson as a center lines up great with Zegras and McTavish, so he won't be expected to be, right out the gate producing at a rate that, obviously he's not a Connor Bedard, but when you go number 2, you're kind of expecting, a top player. He's not going to be expected to be that guy at this moment because you have already Zegras and McTavish kind of being his center mates there. So, it's a move that they liked and they feel great about. And, we'll see how it ends up moving forward. But, I don't think you could have gone wrong going Carlsson there. The obvious pick was Fantilli. But I think Anaheim is happy with their pick for sure.
Yeah, I see no issue with it. I think it just comes down to personal preference, right? There was talk that he could go second. And again, Fantilli's won all kinds of things. He won World Junior, World Championship, and all that kind of stuff. So he's played well. Again, nothing, Jarmo Kekalainen gets a great center, but he would have been happy with, Carlsson as well, right? A lot of people compare him to Nick Backstrom, and the same thing, we see the career that Backstrom has been able to put together. So when you have a centerman like that who can really facilitate the puck around, a great two-way game, those are hard players to find, right? So when you can land one of those elite talents, and again, he gets to go into Anaheim, doesn't have to worry about carrying this team, doesn't have to worry about all the pressure every night, let the other big boys around him do the work that they need to do, let him kind of settle into what he's expected to do, even if when the Anaheim Ducks are terrible next year, they don't have to worry about it for too long. He can just kind of show up and do what he needs to do.
Yeah, and again, it's a two-way center, and it's kind of a guy that can expect it to be there for a long time if he lives up to his pedigree. And again, that's not a sexy pick, but when you're trying to rebuild, it's not always about making a sexy pick. It's about making the pick that you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck out of over the long haul. And that's definitely what Carlsson can fit into in that mold. And there's no rush for Anaheim to, like it's been mentioned here, no rush when you're in a division with Vegas, who's the defending champions, The Kings, who we'll talk about later, who have made some moves to upgrade. Edmonton is still a top team in the division. Vancouver's on the rise. So there's really no rush for Anaheim right now. So they can develop these guys. They're going to lose a lot of games, but that's fine. So that was the first 3 picks of the draft went. Then San Jose takes Will Smith at 4 overall. So again, we're kind of back on track. And then the Canadians are up at 5. And Matvei Mickov, who we've talked about on this show, and who some would argue is the second best prospect in this draft after Connor Bedard. But the issues with guys coming over from the KHL hurt him. He's sitting right there for Montreal to take. Mickov was plus 275 to go at 5. And they decided to take defenseman David Reinbacher. And the reaction in the group chat amongst the 3 of us was, well, I enjoyed it. I know Chris did not. And this is on a week we traded a first and second for Alex Newhook. So let's start there. What was your reaction to that?
I mean, Alex Newhook, I think a lot of people are hoping that Montreal can strike gold twice here, kind of like they did the previous draft where they went out, they acquired Kirby Dach. I think Kirby Dach is he's a young player he's still learning to, get things done. He can play center, he can play the wing, he can play all kinds of positions. So if you're looking to build on Alex Newhook, he didn't see any power play time in Colorado, didn't have really good line mates, didn't see a ton of quality ice times, I like to call it. So he's coming to Montreal where he can see all of that. He can play center, he can play the wing, he can play with some decent players. He's going to get an opportunity, that's for sure. So there is very little risk here, ton of upside. It's a shame that they had to trade a first and a early second to get it. But if they're banking on doing something good or hoping that the upside is still there on a really young player, I can live with that. I'll live with the upside there. The draft picks, right? When you get late into those rounds, the odds of them becoming elite NHL players are slim to none. The odds of them becoming a good NHL player are also quite low, right? Like there are numbers that prove this. So if you're going to take a risk, might as well take it on a young player who's played in some NHL, who has speed, who has upside. I'm okay with it. I'll sleep easy with that.
However,
yeah, well, the other side is I'm going to take nothing away from David Reinbacher, who I feel sorry for Carey Price, who was unable to remember a last name, but he's on vacation mode. He is gone now. So that just confirmed it. Reinbacher was the top defenseman in the draft, and that was a consensus. Nobody was questioning that. He played in the Swiss Elite League. He is a very good defenseman. So I'm not going to take anything away from that. He has earned the right to be the top defenseman in that draft. However, Montreal has no shortage of young defensemen in the system. That is not something that they are missing. And again, as I stated on the last episode, and the hill that I will continue to die on is that Mickov, everybody knows the skill that he has and what he can do. If he can translate that to the NHL, which nobody is saying that he can't, because he played in the KHL, which is a men's league, saw limited ice time. I mean, he finished, I think, was third or fourth in scoring on that team, and he played not even half a year. So he's pretty good at what he needs to do. And all the contract talk and all that stuff is all just scary, right? Reinbacher's not going to play for the Canadiens next season. He's going to go wherever his development needs him to play, which is fine. That's not an issue. But in a draft that we knew that was deep, where you could have gotten elite talent up front, you chose to go the safe route. That's what the Reinbacher pick was, a safe bet of a player who could probably develop into a top 2 NHL defenseman, log the 25, 27 minutes a night. He's going to be good, controlling his exits, controlling, top players on the other side. Nothing wrong with playing it safe. But if you wanted to play it safe, you could have done that last year in a really weak offensive draft. And you could have taken whoever went second there, his name to the devil, right? You could have taken him and he would have been perfectly fine. And nobody would have said that's a terrible pick because there was no consensus number one. So I think that's the part where a lot of Habs fans are kind of upset. You had the opportunity last year to take a defenseman if that's who you wanted to stockpile. Instead, they chose to do that in a draft that was super deep with offensively talented players. Mickov going back to the KHL is just one of those things. If you have to wait 3 years for him to come over, so what? You waited 2.5 for Cole Caulfield to show up. The only difference is that he went back to Wisconsin. So I'm not, as my right, high school teachers would say, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, Chris. And that's how I see it as well. I'm not mad at the pick because it is a good defenseman. And if he ends up being who he can be, well, Reinbacher and Gooley for years to come on the blue line is definitely a pairing I can get behind. But you have a ton of young players. Montreal suited up 5 rookie defensemen multiple times last year. And you can't have all that young talent on the back end because somebody's got to teach them how to play in the NHL. It is a tough position to play. It's going to take him some years to just get accustomed. We saw Victor Hedman take like 4 or 5 years to become the Victor Hedman. We saw Rasmus Dahlin take 4 or 5 years before he had an explosion. It is tough to play defense in the NHL at an exceptionally high level. So I'm going to give him the opportunity to be good, but I feel like they should have taken top scoring talent.
Yeah, what I love about what we do on this show is we've been able over the last couple of weeks to break down the different themes of just this one pick. And, Adam talked about being safe, right? Because Michkov could have probably went second as well, right? That he could have went as high as second. That's as good as a pick he could have been. And the hesitation, even with San Jose, to even pick him and go Will Smith route, right? And we also, talked about last week about the whole issue with Washington. I know it didn't bother you at all, Chris, but could it have bothered Montreal that he kind of wanted to go, or the rumors came out that he kind of wanted to go to Washington? Could that have been an issue with them not wanting to draft him? And, we probably won't even know about that. But, I find it funny that all the talk about him going to Washington, and I was like, it would be funny if Philly just snags him right before, and they absolutely did. They snagged him right before they could get him to Washington. And, kudos to Philly, who's also in rebuild mode. And, they thought the way that you were thinking, Chris. They thought, he's going to be possibly high profile and possibly be a player that down the line, they're not going to be ready. Philly's not going to be ready anytime soon. So they can wait for the kid to come up in 3 years and he'll be playing with men and he'll probably be, a top line player when it's time for him to come. So, kudos to Philly who snatched him right from Washington. So
Lots
that's
of time for John Tortorella to get fired so that they don't have to worry about Michkov's defensive game. So there's long game there. Yes, I agree with 100% of what you said.
Yeah, Philly seems to be doing the rebuild the right way. They are not giving a crap. They are just absolutely just saying, we're going to be the worst team we could be, acquire as many prospects and picks as we can, and we'll try and compete in a few years. Nothing wrong with that. Now, just to go back to Carey Price for a second, and of his era, he was my second favorite goalie to watch after Henrik Lundqvist. Dude, can you at least give it a shot? It's not that tough of a name to pronounce. It's not like you never saw Nikolai Habibulin's name before and they threw that in front of you and it's like, at least give it a shot, number one. And number two, whoever the Canadians PR person is or whoever, can you just be like, oh, hey, Carey, it's Reinbacher, by the way. Just put it in his ear. Be like, just come on, be better than that.
Did they just make that pick? Did they just think of that pick and then they're like, Carey, this is the guy? Definitely not, right?
Reinbacher has been solid top 10 pick in every mock for however many months. Maybe know how to pronounce the top 10 names, just in case. Just going to throw that out. I know you're in vacation mode, but come on. All right. So we're going to move on from the draft now. We're going to talk a little free agency here coming up on Saturday, but a lot of stuff has happened before we get busy with the signings and stuff like that. And we mentioned how unhappy Chris was that Montreal passed on Michkov, but man, every time I see the Devils making moves this week, I find myself saying, oh, that's a good signing. Huh. That's a good trade acquisition. They're making good moves. $8 million a year for Timo Meier is very reasonable. When they acquired Tyler Toffoli, my first reaction is, man, that's a really good fit for what they need. And he's going to help them a ton on the power play. But I'm going to step aside and let our resident Devils fan here just, bask in the joy that with the week that was the New Jersey Devils.
I mean, you're talking about Fitz magic from the GM Fitzgerald there, what he was able to pull off this week. Look at the top six right now, the top 2 lines there. Timo Meier, Hischier, Brad Hughes, Toffoli. You could throw in Dawson Mercer in there as well. I mean, these top lines, Fitzgerald is ready to make the push for a deep playoff run. That's what happened this week. That's what he's decided to do. And, I've been through years of free agents not wanting to come here, not wanting to stay here and move on with previous regimes. And to see, after, signing Heischer to their deal, making him captain, signing Jack Hughes last year may have been the sign that this Devils team is for real. Getting Meier on the deal that they did, and Meier talked about it. And again, we talk about themes on this show. Last week, I brought to you guys, is it better to be Eichel and win the Stanley Cup, or is it better to be the Connor McDavid and, solidify stats? Everyone had a different answer. Timo Meier's answer was he was going to take less money to try to win a cup. And that's what he cares about, is winning a cup. And I'm excited to see what this team can do moving forward. Fitzgerald said he's not done. He's looking on a daily basis at the goalies. So who knows where they can go? There's a lot of options, right? Obviously, the big option is Connor Hellebuyck, who will eventually be traded. I don't know if they get that deal done. I know my friend who's a season ticket holder to the Devils said he would take Hellebuyck even just on a 1-year deal, even just on the trade, and let him go into free agency. So, we'll see if they can pull that off. Obviously, Boston has their 2 goalies that, might be able to pry one away in Ullmark and Swayman. And then you got obviously those goalies we talked about in Vegas, that there's a lot there. Thompson, Hayden Hill's a free agent. So a lot of moves going on in New Jersey, and I don't think they're done. Nothing major following, Meier and Toffoli outside of getting a goalie. The rest will be trying to shore up the bottom 2 lines to go along with the defense. Obviously, Luke Hughes is probably going to be in the starting lineup coming this season. And then you got Simon Nemec. So a lot of big things going on in New Jersey at the Rock.
Yeah, I think let's not hide it. They basically got Toffoli for nothing, and Toffoli had, by the way, 73 points last year playing on a Calgary team that was coached by a Sutter where they played defense, and Jonathan Huberdeau couldn't get going. So Tyler Toffoli did some good things in an offense that was kind of like meh, and now he goes to New Jersey where there's no shortage of offensively gifted players to help them. New Jersey, to me, I feel like right now where they stand, they feel a lot like the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is built from the offense out. They are very good offensively when you look at their top 6. I think their bottom 6 can compete. You just need them to be good. That's it. You just don't be a liability and you'll be fine. Defensively, I think they will survive. I think they do have a little, some holes here and there, but you can patch those up with, bottom pairing guys who can kind of just solidify the Dougie Hamiltons and the rest of the worlds that are there. Like you said, let's see what Luke Hughes can do. He can play extended minutes and he can be, great. Then maybe the loss of, Severson and the rest of them doesn't hurt as much. For sure, their goaltending is an issue, right? Which is why they look like the Leafs to me. But the 1 year of Connor Hellebuyck, if you're going to go for it, right? Toffoli's on a 1-year deal as well. He's got 1 year left. So if you're going to take a run in a division where, it feels like a bloodbath half the time coming out of it, you could take a stab. I don't know what you can get out of it. I know teams are kind of cautious as to how much money that Hellebuck's going to want. He's going to want to open the bank, and he's earned it. So if you're going to do 1 year, I don't know how much Winnipeg just wants to kind of give up a goalie and not get a ton of assets in return. But I would definitely take a stab on it and say, hey, look, Connor, you can come here. We can try to win something. Let's do something magical. And at the end, if you don't want to, or we can't afford you or whatnot, go into free agency and see what you can get elsewhere. Or maybe you convince him like you did Timo Meier and say, hey, maybe you don't need $10.5 million. Maybe you only need 8.5, So there's a lot there to love, but I do like the Devils. I think they've done a lot of great things, and it is nice to see general managers do good.
If the Devils get that rental for Hellebuyck, they scare the crap out of me in the Metropolitan Division. And that's the lineup they're going to have for the season before the trade deadline. So what would they do at the trade deadline if they're already walking into the season with everything they have? The Devils, like you said, Tom Fitzgerald, they're really going for it. And Toffoli, 25 power play points too in Calgary. So, what's that going to look like in New Jersey this year? So from a fantasy perspective, Toffoli is a guy you should be looking at in probably the middle early mid rounds is a guy you could probably look at there. And of course, New Jersey now plus 1,200 to win the Stanley Cup at BetMGM. And right now, you get $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win by using fantasyalarm.com/BetMGM. Now, another team that made a big move this week was the LA Kings. They bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois and extend him. They trade out, and some people say that Winnipeg may have fleeced them. I disagree with that. Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and Gabriel Velarde, and a 2024 second rounder heading back to Winnipeg. Sends 8 years, $8.5 million. So pretty much the same as Meier. Meier got 8.8. Chris, you see this move. You look at the Kings now. Their top three centers are Kopitar, PLD, and Philip Deneau. That is a hell of a 1-2-3 punch down the middle.
That is a great 1-2 punch. And we know in the NHL, if you win the middle, you can win the game and you can win a Stanley Cup. Teams that are really strong down the middle have a ton of success. They remind me right now of the OG of Crosby, Malkin, and Jordan Stahl down the middle and how dominant they were. Maybe not to the same extent. Kopitar is getting a little bit older. Deneau doesn't have that offense in him, but Pierre-Luc Dubois is now in a situation where he can, I guess, succeed. He didn't want to be in Columbus. He didn't want to be in Winnipeg. Let's see if, I guess he wants to be in LA. But it was apparent when Montreal decided that they were going to, trade for Newhook that Dubois was going to go the other way. He said he wanted to focus on going to LA. And I'm happy that the Canadiens didn't lock up that kind of money in that player. Nothing to take away from Pierre-Luc Dubois, but I'm looking at a player who just, his offense is good. I don't think it's elite yet. And everywhere he's gone, he kind of doesn't want to be there at some point. So I think maybe, staying away from Montreal, staying away from the pressure, staying away from all that, let him go somewhere else. If he has success, great. I feel bad for Philip Deneau, who left Montreal because he didn't want to be a third line center. And oh, by the way, now he's a third line center. So, cool, I guess. But LA did, I think they gave up a lot, or at least I think Kevin Cheveldayoff got a great return for a player who basically said, I don't want to be here, right? You got players who can play in your lineup. You got young players. You're not completely rebuilding. You have players who can play. And the LA Kings got their guy. So if they're comfortable with giving up whatever they did to get Pierre-Luc Dubois, good. He adds offense to a team that was already very good. This specifically, I think, helps players like Kevin Fiala, Victor Arvidsson. These are guys who love to shoot the puck. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a good setup centerman. He's big. He can compete in the Western Conference and that, that strong-ish division, I guess, that the Pacific may become. So I like it. I think both sides win in this, which is what you want, right? And like you said, the LA Kings have to compete now in a Pacific division where it may just be a three-horse race between Vegas, them, and the Edmonton Oilers, because the Edmonton Oilers are just going to outscore you every night. But this is a team that looks really, really good, and they want to make a cup run, or at least with the core-ish that they have left, right? Kopitar's not getting any younger. Drew Doughty's not getting any younger. They did have to part with Sean Durzi. I thought that was maybe tough a little bit, but this is a team that looks really good. Good for Pierre-Luc Dubois and his agent for getting paid. Good for the Kings for getting a bona fide second line center who can even play top line minutes if he was anywhere else. And good for the Winnipeg Jets for taking a lemon and turning it into lemonade.
And I know that, okay, fine. They gave up some talent all along the wings there. They gave up Velarde. They gave up Iafallo. But you mentioned Fiala. You mentioned Arvidsson. They still have Adrian Kempe. Quentin Byfield's still developing. So, there's no shortage of talent. They were dealing from a position of, we can give this away because we have all this other stuff here. So I think when you look at that Pacific division right now, and I kind of still put Edmonton 3, but if you had to pick somebody to win the division right now, considering what we're just about to talk about with the Barbashev signing in Vegas, do you like Vegas or LA right now? We'll start with you, Chris.
I like LA. I just think they're a very, I want to say complete. I mean, Vegas has won the Stanley Cup, so cool, right? Kind of thing. But I do like, adding a player like Pierre-Luc Dubois is significant. It's not just a small add. It is a significant add as well, both offensively and defensively for your power play, right? The Kings really struggled on the power play. They were a team who shot the puck a ton, but all of a sudden when they got to a 5 men on the ice against 4, they kind of forgot what hockey was. So this kind of solidifies the rest of them. I think their goaltending situation will be fine if Jonas Korpisalo, Cal Pettersson, all that kind of, whatever was going to work out there, cool. Let's see what they can do from that stance, right? Let's see how they can solidify the back end and stuff. And then defensively, let let Drew Doughty stay healthy, let them do whatever they need to do, just exist. But I think that they can at least compete with the Vegas Golden Knights and give them a run for their money. Do they win the division? I don't know, but they will be there, and then it's up to them to get the job done.
What do you think, Ant?
I never like to go against the champions after winning the cup. I don't like to go, when you beat them, then I'll believe when I see it. So I'm going to go with Vegas still winning the division. But like Chris said, you look down the middle with Kopitar, Dubois, and Danault, and their three centers are better than Eichel, Stevenson, and Carlsson, in my opinion. So it's going to be a tough division. It might come down to the wire. Does this put the Kings, get them farther than they did last season? It's possible. Definitely possible. I do like what Chris said about, Danault maybe taking a step back because, I had him and Kevin Fiala stacked in my fantasy league, and those guys are just cranking out points for me. And to now have Danault in the third line, obviously Fiala will get a big push off of Dubois, but Danault is going to take a tough step back maybe when you're drafting in fantasy.
I'm going to be so annoying about the Kings this year because I'm already and like my Shark fan friends are not going to like it, but like right now a plus 2,500 to win the cup, the way that team looks like that, you got to put a little money on that. In Vegas, and these moves and these deals, they're happening. So it's not a direct response to them, but it almost kind of has a keeping up with the Joneses kind of vibe to it there. When they signed Barbashev, affordable 5 years, $5 million per. That's a pretty good deal for a guy that just helped play a pretty significant role in helping you to win a Stanley Cup. Affordable deal there and helps keep you competitive at the top. You were a big Barbashev guy, and you saw what he did to the Vegas lineup and the impact he had. This means Vegas can really just hang around for the next few years, no problem, with a guy like this at their top six.
Yeah, a lot of people thought he was going to get even more money because of how he played in the postseason, right? 7 goals, 11 assists, top 5 on Vegas in points, 18 points. And, between Vegas and St. Louis, I think it was like about 40, 45 points he had between both of those teams. Barbashev really showed us a lot, especially in the postseason, not only scoring points, but I talk about Timo Meier and the overall game he brings hitting wise and, being able to score. And Barbashev is kind of, not in the Meier lane just yet, but he could be getting there especially with this Vegas team where he's on the top line. Good deal for Vegas to keep him and, kind of keep this team in motion in trying to win back-to-back cups. It's hard, but with this team that they have now, anything's possible.
They did well. Just anytime you can add a winger of $4 million that help you win a Stanley Cup who does as much as he does, you've done well, right? He can complement any line that he plays on, right? So you can move him up and down the lineup wherever he needs to be. Great presence. He goes to the net. He is maybe not the same, but I find he has much more skill than, let's say, a Tom Wilson. Everybody flocks around Tom Wilson and they talk great about him. And I think he is just the worst overrated player that people keep talking about, whether it's real life or fantasy. Everybody talks about Tom Wilson. I say Tom Wilson is good at getting suspended. Outside of that, I don't know what else he brings. Barbashev is one of those guys, coaches love those words, grit, character, tough to play against. He fits all those unmeasurable analytics that coaches love. So good deal all around there. No problem.
Sandpaper is another one they love to use for guys like
that's it. If you had a bingo card for Ivan Barbashev with all those words, he's hitting a lot of them.
Vegas now plus 1,300 to win the cup on FanDuel, up to $2,500 no sweat first bet by using fantasyalarm.com/FanDuel. Join the FanDuel Sportsbook and deposit $10 or more. Place your first bet up to $2,500 and get up to $2,500 in bonus bets back if you lose. Now before we get to a little free agency prediction game, got one more move to talk about. And this is not a major move, but this just goes into the narrative that I talked about last time with the Pittsburgh Penguins being a dark horse to maybe win the Stanley Cup. And they go out and they get Reilly Smith for a 2023 third round pick. They're plus 4,000 to win the cup on Caesars. And you know what? Go do it, just like the Kings. Go do it now, because this just feels like the tip. the Penguins feel like they're going to get one last hurrah here with Crosby and Malkin and Letang before the guys go off into the sunset and play golf. I mean, couldn't you just see Reilly Smith just sliding? And I know Raquel was there next to Crosby on his right side for a lot this year, but I could just see Reilly Smith plugging right in, fitting into that team with all that championship and playoff experience, and he brings it into. I love the fit. I hate the fit as a Ranger fan in the Metropolitan Division, but you know, it's one of those moves where I think when we look back, maybe he wasn't getting it done in Vegas anymore, but I think he'll have a nice home there in Pittsburgh in that top six and contribute and just be a good guy that, Crosby or Malkin can rely on.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, he adds something that the Penguins need. If they stay healthy, then he can definitely contribute. He's a top six player. So whether he plays with Crosby or he plays with Malkin, I don't know if, maybe he doesn't see enough power play time to make it efficient, but he is there and he can add value. I think the the Vegas Golden Knights are in a tough position here because my idea is that they're going to try to sign Adin Hill, or at least that's what they're talking to. The paperwork's got to be slow because the cap's got to fit, yada, yada, yada. So they kind of felt like they had to move here a piece to be able to keep Adin Hill. I guess that speaks to Adin Hill and how well that he did. And if Reilly Smith is the guy you got to move on from, then Reilly Smith is the guy you got to move on from. And the Penguins were quick, as they always are, to add players who can contribute. I mean, we saw Rickard Rakell had a great year, and a lot of people thought that he was going to be MIA. So this is a good team. They still have players who can contribute. They still have guys who can score goals. If they can just, their goaltending is what it is. If Tristan Jarry can stay healthy and perform, they're fine. I think defensively, they're still good. They can still at least compete for a playoff spot. Let's not forget, they were 1 point away from making the playoffs, and they couldn't beat the worst team in the NHL, followed by one of the other worst teams in the NHL. So this is a team that can at least squeak into the playoffs. Whatever happens from there, do it.
We'll see what happens with Tristan Jarry. He's one of those goalies that's out there if they bring him back or not. I mean, it's not a big goalie market. It's Frederik Andersen, it's Tristan Jarry, it's Adin Hill. And like you mentioned, Adin Hill looks like Vegas is doing everything they can to try and keep him there. So we'll see what happens there. But and don't forget, right now over at Caesars, it's up to $2,550 back on your first bet, plus 1,000 tier credits, plus 1,000 reward credits if you use the promo code FULLFA at fantasyalarm.com/Caesars. So that sets the table now for free agency that's going to begin on Saturday. And we're going to talk about 3 players here that, hey, hopefully that nothing happens or nothing leaks, after we post this, but we're going to do what we're going to do. And the first of 3 guys we're going to talk about here is Mr. Ryan O'Reilly. And, it's not a deep, let's just talk for a second about the free agency classes here. It is not a strong free agency class, but there are definitely guys that could be had. He's one of the top guys out there. And, right now you can see the odds on the screen there. Colorado plus 135, Pittsburgh plus 300, Blues plus 400, also the Leafs. Vancouver's a name I keep seeing pop up going after O'Reilly, and Columbus being plus 500. I have no idea. I can't imagine they have a realistic shot at him. But if you had to look at any of those teams there, who do you see is the best fit for O'Reilly?
Does it got to be Toronto? No.
No, I'm going to go right off the board here. He's not going to any of those teams. I don't see him going to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has Jeff Carter there. I think Carter can do what he needs to do. Team-friendly deal. Fine. Like you said, it's not a strong group. So somebody's going to pay too much money for Ryan O'Reilly. The Leafs have no money. Colorado solidified. Like their center core to me, I feel like is pretty good. They also went out to get Ross Colton. So I don't think they need another centerman, or they're not going to entertain that there. Does he want to go back to St. Louis and lose again? I don't think so. Vancouver makes the only logical sense if he believes that the Vancouver Canucks can compete. So you have JT Miller who plays down the center, Elias Pettersson, right? He could be a good 3 center if he wants, maybe move up if you want to move Miller to the wing and play Elias Pettersson right down the middle, that kind of combo. Fine there. To me, he's going to go to a winner or a team that can at least compete in where it is. So it's a team like Florida, right? A team like Vegas, by the way. Oh, look, we just won the Stanley Cup on like team-friendly deals, right? If you're going to sell winning to Ryan O'Reilly and Ryan O'Reilly wants to win, then fine, you can do that. He's won a Stanley Cup. I don't think he's going to go somewhere where he doesn't compete. It's just not, I don't see an name. So either Toronto can find some money, which they don't have, and say, fine, come back here and do the job that we want you to do, or he goes, like I said, to a team that can win and they convince him that they sign money. But I don't like those odds there. I wouldn't take any of them.
What about you, Ant?
Yeah, I could agree with Chris then. I thought maybe Toronto might be, but if they're in, cap trouble, then you got to go where you think you're going to win something and win a championship. So, I mean, if that's the spot, then
Of the teams up there, I would think Vancouver, if they overpay, might be an okay bet at plus 500. What about Minnesota as being one of their centers? I mean, I know they have Joel Eriksson, and I know they got Ryan Hartman on their top line, but I mean, you plug a guy like him in there down the middle, I feel like he can make a difference on a team like that. Just spitballing other teams, I mean, the Islanders is a dark horse, but again, what do they want to spend? But so we're right there. O'Reilly a little bit tough. The next guy we're going to bring up, and you mentioned the Florida Panthers, and I think this is a great destination for Mr. Vladimir Tarasenko. I think that is a perfect landing spot. You can see the odds right there at plus 300. Carolina at plus 250 is another one I keep hearing. If Max Pacioretty is not going to be ready to go, then that is a potential target for them, and I think that would be a great fit. I don't think Toronto would be able to afford him in that cap. I could see Dallas doing it. LA kind of, I think, takes themselves out of it with the PLD signing. Islanders at plus 900 as a long shot is another one I like too, just because let's face it, they need offense. That's what Tarasenko brings, even if he's on the back nine of his career.
yeah, the Islanders need offense, but is our former GM and now the guy on their side, is he going to want to spend? He doesn't really spend big time on free agents.
Fair point.
So
I would say Florida as well. That's kind of where I'm leaning. That's where he can get some good playing time. I think maybe, like, I would like to say LA, but LA needs to sign Korpisalo. I think that's a bigger need. And then, they don't really have any money left over. And I think Tarasenko believes that he can still go out and get some money. I would like to see him go to Dallas, though. That'd be kind of fun, having Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, Vladimir Tarasenko on a line. Sure, sign me up for that.
Put him at Tyler Seguin sometimes. Why not?
Tyler Seguin. Hey, any type of cheap correlation in DFS would be kind of fun for me. So I wouldn't mind that. But Carolina is the one that makes sense depending on Max Pacioretty and his Achilles. But I don't think Carolina swings that far for Tarasenko. I would go Dallas. That's my love.
Florida probably, when you look at one of the issues that Florida had in the Stanley Cup, was they really have no depth down the wing. Like, fine, you have Matthew Tkachuk, fine, you have Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Reinhart, brings a little bit different, but what else do you really have after that? Anthony Duclair is what he is. He does the same thing at every stop. Anton Lundell, nice player too, but not somebody you're going to write home about as a top offensive producer. Tarasenko can have an impact on that Florida lineup. I think that's Carolina, Florida, Dallas, Islanders, I think would be the four that I would, if I was going to place a bet on Tarasenko, would be the four I'd pick from there.
Florida and Dallas, no state tax, right?
Correct.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. It's not something that can be forgotten about when players have to decide where they're going. Because let's face it, if anybody that's ever had to pay taxes at the end, just think about what the state takes from you every year. Now,
especially
imagine you're making like $8 million a year or whatever. Tarasenko will probably see something maybe in like the 6 to 7 range, maybe. I don't know, but think about that for a minute. So that can have a difference. So
especially in New York, where his last landing stop. Do you want to see, like, is there any possibility that he can go back to the Rangers? I mean, they're gonna have to make some type of moves, right? They can't just stay stagnant after the way that the season ended for them.
Yes, they need help on the wing, and if you're going to ask me between Tarasenko and Kane, it's a no-brainer. It's Tarasenko. Kane coming off a hip. The Rangers don't have the luxury to play with that fire. If the number's right, then yes, absolutely. And I know that's an obvious answer, and that's an easy answer to give, but I just think I'd like to see them focus on the back end a little bit more. That was exactly what we talked about at the deadline. They went and got Tarasenko and Mikkola, which was a great move. And then you go out and get Kane, which was essentially the same thing as getting Tarasenko. So got to improve the blue line, and they need help on the wing. But I think Tarasenko might be just a little too rich for their blood, and they may have to go like to a B tier kind of winger to help fill that void. Now, speaking of Patrick Kane, he is also one of the guys that's out there. And like we said, coming off hip surgery, so teams are going to be a little hesitant, but We see some odds up there. Carolina plus 300, the Avs plus 400, Toronto no shot at plus 500. Dallas is an intriguing one at plus 600, New Jersey at plus 700, Pittsburgh at plus 750. Besides Dallas, any other teams up there that you'd like, or anybody off the board that you think might take a shot on Kane? I mean, what is Kane at this point? He wants to go to a contender, but is a contender going to be able to afford him, or is he going to have to settle for playing for like a kind of a mid-tier playoff team and not expect not to get far if he's going to want to get paid what he wants to get paid?
Yeah, we're talking about a guy, like you just said, coming off a hip injury. Does he want top line minutes? Does he expect to be a top line guy? Because he won't get that from the Devils. I don't think he'll get that from Pittsburgh or Dallas. I don't know if any of those teams actually on here he'll get that from. I don't even know, like, will he be signed by the time the season begins, considering the shape he's in right now?
Excellent
No,
question.
I don't think he signs before. I think teams are a little bit hesitant, right? I think he has the skill to still play in the NHL. His offense is like okay. He is a defensive liability, and that everybody knows. So I don't know if he's going to go to a well-structured team because he is going to have a hard time, especially if he's looking for top line minutes. I think if he is looking for a fair deal, right? Something that is within the $3.5–4 million range, which even that kind of stretching, right? He's going to end up either in Pittsburgh because why not, right? You can play with some talented players there. Sure, Pittsburgh can make it work. Or I mean, if you want to be part of something special and he wants to win a Stanley Cup, why doesn't he go to New Jersey on a 3.5 1-year deal? And he can play on the second or third line and rotate. He's going to have to accept it at some point. So either you accept wanting to win and being part of something special, or like you said, right, you go and you play for one of these bottom feeder teams. They try to flip you at the deadline. He wanted to go to the Rangers. There's a reason he wanted to go there, because he thought he could win. We all heard in his voice he was disappointed when Tarasenko went and it wasn't him. So I don't know if the Rangers are going to dish out money for him just because that hip. I don't know many teams that are going to pay top dollars for a defensive liability up front who is not a shell of himself, but he's not aging well. So I think if he wants to be part of something special, the Devils can let Thomas Tatar go and you can sign Patrick Kane and all the upside is there. And they can probably make the cap work.
Let me throw one out there for you. He's from Buffalo. He could kind of get a balance of both getting his minutes in the top six, playing for a team that, was sniffing around the playoff periphery last year and can certainly be in the, I mean, I know it's the nice narrative, oh, he's going home, but I mean, that could be a nice fit of both sides for what Kane's looking for. But, again, it would have to be a short deal, would have to be, we know what you are at this point. We don't expect you to back check, not that you do anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think that would be a nice one, but we'll see. And I think there will be a little bit of a delay on Kane signing. Now, we've talked a lot of free agency. We've talked a lot of signings. We talked some draft, but we have to really get down to the important business here on Bettor Hockey Now as we wrap things up. The Anaheim Ducks released their 30th anniversary jerseys coming up this year. They're going to be wearing those for opening night, any home games against Pacific Division teams, and they said a few scattered road games. So it's time to take a look at those if you haven't seen them already yet. And as I get these captions off the screen here, bear with me for a minute. And let's get this up on the screen. And what is our initial take here of the Ducks jersey? Now, they've got the old color scheme, right? It's a little bit darker than the initial ones. You got the purple, you got the green. I mean, I like everything here but the actual Duck logo. I think they should have gone with the original plain goalie mask, not this like crooked cleft palate kind of cleft bill Duck they have here. I think, not to say it ruined it, but it definitely took a little wind out of the sails from my enthusiasm about it.
Well, it's obviously a homage to the Mighty Ducks, right? I mean, you got that Donald Duck look from Disney and when they owned the team. The colors there, I like. I like the emblem. I really do. I don't think there's anything wrong with this jersey whatsoever. I was never a big fan of the D that looked like a duck foot. I wasn't a big fan of that, but this one I'm a huge fan of, especially when they did the retros and they brought back the Mighty Ducks jerseys. I like them. I really do.
The
I have no problem with this.
Retros were sweet. That was a nice blend.
I am on the same boat. I love this. I was on a show I did once with Howard Bender and Jim Bowden, and they asked me what the best hockey movie of all time was. I said obviously the Mighty Ducks. They looked at me crazy. I stand by it, and that brings a lot to the jersey here. I love it. I think it is great. It is a shame that they are a terrible team, but their jerseys are just massive W's all the way around. I think it's great. I love it. If I had to buy a jersey outside of Arizona's, right, their Chiquita jersey, I would get an Anaheim Ducks, as many of their retro jerseys as possible, because it is great. I love it. They'll be able to sell more of them. If there are Anaheim Duck fans out there, they need to buy these jerseys because these are beautiful.
Now we can talk about best hockey movies of all time and all that on a different day, but I will say that the D2, the sequel for Anaheim Ducks, as far as sequels go, was top notch. Usually sequels are a big step down. D2, the Mighty Ducks. I mean, it made you hate Iceland as a kid. Who the hell hates Iceland? I actually went to Iceland with my now wife. It's a beautiful country, but you watch that movie, man, you're ready to elbow some Icelandic hockey player in the corner, no problem, and give it to him twice. But
no, D2 for sure. That's my favorite of the trilogy. And you know what? The more I watch the movies, the more 3 grows on me. The more
not bad.
No, it really is. I don't know if you guys have seen the show. At least the first season. The second season was okay, but they brought the show back. I thought it was good. I thought the homage to bringing back the old team back, that was fun. I really think they did a good job. That's a good set of movies. I mean, obviously, and Disney has put out, some really great hockey movies. You include Miracle on there, which is more historical, but they've done well by the hockey community. And I told you guys when we were texting that they had an E60 called Once Upon a Time in Anaheim, which links obviously the movie to Disney buying a franchise, obviously in Anaheim. And the Kings had some part to do with that as well. So if you guys check that out, it's pretty good.
I got a lot of hate for saying the Mighty Ducks. I was crucified on air. Again, Miracle on Ice is great movie. I'm a Canadian, so it's cool, fine. Like it's one of those things, right? Kind of things. And then I took a lot of hate as well for people saying Slapshot. But again, I'm 32, so I grew up watching the Mighty Ducks, right? I wasn't allowed to watch Slapshot immediately. I had to grow into it. But I'm glad that we share the same opinion on the Mighty Ducks. I'm very happy with that.
I wish that I had my jerseys dry cleaned, but I do have from the first movie a Conway jersey, so I got to bring that on at some point.
Slapshot is an all-time great movie. Definitely not child appropriate. Definitely need to be of high school age to watch that for some of the lines in that movie. A dark horse, Mystery Alaska with Russell Crowe, and they have the hockey team up in Alaska and the Rangers come up and play. That's a solid hockey movie too. But we could talk about that another time. But just this is with the look that they should be going. This should be the 30th anniversary jersey. Why mess with a classic? The Oakland Raiders.
Bringing that up on the big screen.
Well,
so we can see that figure.
You know what? You're right. Let the people see let's see what this looks like right here.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Teemu Selanne likes the old look. Now, look at the Las Vegas Raiders. They may have played in Oakland, LA, Oakland, and Las Vegas in the past 40 years, but they don't change their jerseys because it's an awesome look. It's a classic look. That's silver and black. The Ducks have that classic look with this. Go back to this. I don't need the stupid crooked.
They got to sell jerseys. They need the hockey-related revenue, man.
I know,
but it's got to go up.
But I do hope that they keep it in.
Jersey, there's people out there like, oh, I got the Adidas. Now I got to get the Reebok or whatever the current league jersey. Like there are people like that too that will gladly go out and get the same jersey, but it's a different cut now.
I mean, whichever jersey it is, I do hope that they keep one of those Mighty Ducks jerseys in circulation every season. That's like for me needing at least one of those Christmas Devils jerseys, the green and red or white, green, or whatever. One of them has to be a part of it. So I hope that they do that with the Ducks and keep that, forever.
The Devils should always wear the white and green look for around Christmas and around St. Patty's Day. You don't have to do it the rest of the year, but for around the home games or around those times of the year, should absolutely do it.
Although they do have now I guess it was from the Kansas City Times. They have it now blue, white and red, which I do kind of like those. So if they decide they don't want to do the green and red ones, I am all for keeping the, that Kansas City look that they had.
The old Kansas City Scouts back in the day. And then, they were the Colorado Rockies for a little bit, but that'll do it for episode 6 of Bettor Hockey Now on Bettor Sports Network. We're going to be back with you next week. We're going to have free agency to react to. So that's going to be the big piece right there when we come back with you next week here for episode 7. But for Christopher Morais and Anthony Rivera, I'm Adam Bernard. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next time here on Bettor Hockey Now.
Bettor Hockey Now is on the Bettor Sports Network.